countries around the world are tracking the US election campaign result and what the two candidates are up to. China is among those countries, of course, but Beijing has clashed with the US president on a host of issues, on tech, on trade, as well as many other areas. But look, would things be any different if there were a Joe Biden presidency? More from Olivia Song.
30 seconds, please.
Foreign policy rarely figures in U.S. presidential elections, but not this time round, with President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden battling to see who is the bigger China hawk. And some 11,000 kilometers away, the Chinese are paying close attention.
我感觉宁愿特朗普当还是不要拜登当，知道吧？特朗普，因为人家都叫他特梅普嘛，他虽然跟小孩似的，知道吧？我感觉他也不会对中国怎么样吧。
希望就是如果能的话，就是换一个领导人，这样来说，多少少还是有点希望能缓解一下的。
Under the Trump administration, relations between Washington and Beijing have plunged dramatically, with tit-for-tat actions on a number of fronts, from trade and the mutual closures of consulates to visa restrictions for journalists, students and scholars. But even if Mr. Biden wins, relations between the US and China will almost certainly remain sour. Despite a polarised political climate, Republican and Democratic lawmakers have overwhelmingly been in favour of tougher actions against Beijing. And according to the Pew Research Center, negative views of China amongst Americans have increased nearly 20 percentage points since President Trump took office.
The difference is that, okay, you are doing the right war, but you may use the wrong weapon. And so it's really the means that may differ, but the end goal would be the same. The other situation you see is that the hawkish people are really hijacking the policy framework, and the constructive side is fading away. And so therefore, they are really competing who is tougher on China.
President Trump has been particularly critical of China when it comes to its handling of COVID-19. And since he was infected with the coronavirus, he's promised that Beijing will pay a big price for what they've done to the world.
China will pay a big price for what they did.
Those in China who view Trump as being able to force the CCP's hands in a short time far more effectively than the Obama administration was able to achieve in 2 terms. So at the same time, the Trump's administration aggressive approach towards China has also allowed the Chinese government to put out a narrative that America was out to cause trouble for China, and thus allowing the CCP to play the nationalism card, especially over the past half a year or so with the COVID pandemic.
Some prominent Chinese observers have even suggested that Beijing could prefer Mr. Trump to stay in power, as his motivations are more narrowly focused on trade and the economy. In contrast, Mr. Biden has signaled a greater emphasis on multilateralism, and the former vice president could repair bridges with America's allies and build effective coalitions to pressure China.
Certain alliances which the US sort of forgotten about in the last few years would come back, and that might also create challenges for China, especially if China wants to court some of these countries which are previously more closely aligned to the US.
With many commentators already predicting a second Cold War, with China as the new superpower challenging the US, Beijing may have to gear up for more turbulence in its dealings with the US.
There are already signs that China is bracing for a more hostile world as it faces tensions with the likes of Europe, India, Canada and Australia. In recent times, Beijing has also been promoting what some analysts call its contingency plan, with its new dual circulation policy, focusing on its domestic market and cutting its dependence on the outside world. Olivia Xiong, CNA, Beijing.